So no, this one probably isn't all that spooky, and I could tell the paranormal bits in just a few lines, but maybe you'll bear with me. This is an event that meant a lot to me. And I want to share it. Grow up in a small house in the suburbs. It's me, my baby sister Katie, and my parents. I love spending time with my baby sister. She's 4 years younger than me and basically a little sponge, so I spend a lot of time teaching her about all of the shit I think is cool. She thinks I'm a superhero basically. Happy family photo.png. When I'm 12, Katie dies. I don't want to go into too much detail here because it's a bad memory, but basically it was a hit and run on our street. I take it badly. My school grades plummet, my interest in hanging out with friends goes out the window. I just can't fathom it. Why would God allow that to happen to a sweet little girl like Katie? Why would He allow it to happen to me? My faith in God dries up. By the time I was 16 I was a certified fedora-wearing atheist, even bought a Richard Dawkins poster for my room. I know, cringe. Fast forward, I'm 20 years old. Drop out of college and move out of my parents' house. Get a job at a restaurant where I make decent tips and can afford to live alone in the city. Doing pretty good, but the bitterness never leaves me. Every year, on the anniversary of her death, her smiling face pops into my head. By that point I had stopped visiting her grave, it was just too hard, but I always spent the day thinking about her. She was a brave kid, full of energy. My parents were happy to have me around to help look after her. She was a real handful. It was my job to keep her safe. It's my fault she died. Every year I relive that same feeling. Fast forward a couple of years. I'm a trainer at the restaurant where I work. I get tasked with training a new guy named Walt. He's a young black kid from Mississippi, real thin, small, and soft-spoken. I think he's too shy to be a server here, but I train him as best I can. But his first night was a total disaster, and after 1 weekend management canned him. After I get off work I find him just sitting in his car, crying. Long story short, I invite him out for a burger and we get to talking. He tells me all about his situation. How he's been living with his alcoholic mother and her dickhead boyfriend. How her boyfriend convinced his mom to kick Walt out. How he's been bouncing from job to job for about a year struggling to get by, eating maybe once a day at most. Shit, I could go on, but the point is that his story really tugs at my conscience. I don't feel right just going back to my own bullshit little life after that. I invite him to crash at my place until he gets on his feet, and after a lot of hesitation, he finally agrees. Fast forward again. It's about 3 months later and Walt and I are best buds. We both like movies and good food. I discovered that Walt was a great cook. He even used to set up all his ingredients in little bowls on the kitchen counter. Mise en place, or whatever. He'd arrange the bowls in a circle for good luck, he'd say. I convinced him to find a kitchen job and he did. He's been working at a nearby barbecue place for a while and is saving every cent, trying to find a place of his own. He finally finds something, I go with him to check it out. It's affordable, but kind of a lousy little place in a sketch neighborhood. But I've learned that Walt's a proud guy, and to him it's better than leeching off me. He's set to move in next month. One night, before his move, we're casually watching some movie that's on TV and shooting the shit. Walt brings up how when he was a kid he had an older brother who was murdered. This was back in Jackson, Mississippi, which he said was really segregated and still pretty racist. His brother was attacked one night by some white dudes and they killed him. His mom never got over it and started drinking heavily. Everything fell apart from there. Walt was just 10 years old when this happened. He felt like he always had to look out for himself from then on out. His mom treated him like shit, her boyfriends all treated him like shit, the other kids in his neighborhood weren't any better. They called him a pussy and a fag because he was smaller than everyone else. He used to get pummeled a lot. He pauses as he's telling me this, getting choked up. This is the first time in his life that he's felt like anyone gave a shit about him, he tells me, and he wants to thank me for everything. I tell him it's no big deal, and that it felt good to be able to help him. That night I'm lying in bed and it hits me. Walt's childhood and mine are total opposites. Walt felt like it was him against the world, that nobody would ever be there for him. I always felt like I let everyone down, that my job was to protect my sister and I failed. I think about this as I go to sleep. The next day, Walt moves out. Just a couple of months later Walt's life is looking up. He's managed to fix up his piece of shit car, he's dating some cute waitress who works over at the barbecue place, and his skills in the kitchen have not gone unnoticed. Pretty soon, I'll be in charge of that thing, he told me with a big smile on his face. I congratulate him. He was standing in my doorway, looking happier than I'd ever seen him. That was the last time I saw him. I find out the next day that Walt was killed. Hit and run. The words fucking echo in my head. I'm devastated. I supported Walt as much as I could, but there's a little voice in my head that wants to say it's all your fault. But it's not. There's nothing more I could have done. I recognized for the first time my sister's death wasn't my fault either. We were both just kids, I couldn't have known any better. I didn't see the car coming, I didn't think she'd run into the street, I didn't know what would happen. Scenes of my little sister run through my mind. This time, they don't hurt so bad. I said that was the last time I saw Walt, but that's not exactly true. Again, trying to keep it brief here. Walt's funeral comes and goes. A pastor delivers the eulogy, and I think about God for the first time in a long while. It's not fair that life is so pointless, that Walt just has to rot in the dirt after suffering so much, that I have to lose people I care about. It's not fair. A week later I have a dream. Walt's sitting under a large tree. I tell him I miss him and he says, "Why? I'm right here." The next morning, I decide to visit Walt's grave and talk to him for a little while. I leave some items I think he'd like, put them all in a little bag the size of your fist and laid it right there on his grave. In the distance I notice a large tree that looks like the one from my dream and I walk over. Not sure what I was expecting. It's not like Walt's gonna pop in out of nowhere and say hello. It's not like he can hear me. But, still, I say, "I miss you, man." Instantly I feel a strange peace and a weird sensation. I can't explain it, just felt like a really intense form of goosebumps, only pleasant. I walk back towards the cemetery gates. The strange goosebump sensation hasn't gone away, and I look over at Walt's grave as I pass it. I stop. The bag of items is open and everything's spread out over the grave. They're arranged in a circle. Mise en place. For good luck, I think. This is going to sound silly, but at that moment a beam of sunlight suddenly streams down onto the grave. I remember Walt saying in my dream, "I'm right here and I can't explain it but I can feel his presence." I'm kind of crying at this point. I tell Walt that I'm glad he's okay. I'm glad he's in a better place. I miss my friend. I miss my sister. But I'm starting to think there's more to life than we think. You can call it coincidence. You can say it's all in my mind. You can say that life is brief and when we die we're gone forever. But I'm sorry. I just don't believe it.